Welcome to Common Filth Radio. How may I trigger you today? Actually, you don't get a choice. I'm going to tell you how you're going to get triggered. Because if you didn't want to hear me in 2 different podcasts in 1 week, you're about to get the fuck triggered out of you. That's right, I was on the Daily Show this week over on the rightstuff.biz, and I would like to thank the guys over there for inviting me on the show. The crypto-fascist media coalition grows stronger by the day. So if you want to hear me talk about Chris Chan, pornography, the sexual revolution, and so on with the death panel for a couple of hours, check the link below. It's a good show. As for what I'm talking about on this show, I'm doing a live reading of the tag Fuck Society, and of course I'm going to read your questions. But before we get into that, I would like to remind you that Tumblristas Raw Volume 1 is out, and it's ready for you to buy. $2 or more gets you 6 new episodes that are exclusive to this collection. They're not available anywhere else, and they will never be available anywhere else for reasons you will discover upon viewing them. So that came out a couple of days ago, last Thursday, and some of you have already bought it, and some of you have left me some nice notes to go along with your purchase, which I will read at the end of the show. So let's get into the questions. If you want your questions read next week, you can send them to me at commonfilth@commonfilth.com. That's my email, and you could go to ask.fm/commonfilth and submit them to me anonymously. We got a couple of questions from mine. We got 3. The first one is, you have made it clear in the past your view on abortions, but how do you feel about abortions for medical reasons? Do you still think that is wrong or has some merit? The argument that's closest to legitimate that the pro-choice people make, and by the way, I do not like the terms pro-choice and pro-life. It's either pro-abortion or anti-abortion. It's, you can't be pro-life all the time because there are some people that just don't deserve it, and I'm sure that people who are against abortion would agree with that. Everyone deserves a chance at life, but it's what you do with it that renders judgment. But as for abortions for medical reasons, with medical technology what it is now, it's becoming increasingly more uncommon that childbirth results in some ill effects for the mother, that ill effect being death. But for things like ectopic pregnancies where it's necessary to remove the fetus from the fallopian tube, I get that, but those are really rare. I also consider the fact that there are pregnancies where they say, look, we have to kill the baby or else you're going to die, and then that ends up not being the case. Doctors aren't always right, and I am proof of that because when I was in the womb, the doctors recommended to my mom that she terminate the pregnancy. She had a difficult pregnancy. She suffered from various illnesses while carrying me, and they said I was going to come out retarded or severely disabled, etc. So here we are. I'm not mentally retarded. I have all my limbs. I can see. My brain works. It's all good. But going back to the point about ectopic pregnancies, there are some people that say that if a woman suffers that kind of pregnancy and she has a procedure done to correct it, it's not really a true abortion. As far as I can tell, it's in line with what the pro-life people believe, because if such a pregnancy occurred, if the mother died, the baby would also die with it. I don't think it's anywhere near what the my body, my choice people do, which is just like, oh shit, I got pregnant. Oops, better go to Planned Parenthood. That's just completely reprehensible behavior because, yes, it is your body, it is your choice, but you know what? This is a thing growing inside of you. It's no longer just your body. You have an occupant. And the reason I say it is their body, it is their choice, because they made the choice to have sexual intercourse. Unprotected sexual intercourse that resulted in a pregnancy. Once you cut through all the bullshit, you realize that their argument is nothing more than, I don't like the fact that there are consequences to my actions. And that's all I have to say about the subject. I find it horrible that people use abortion as a form of birth control. And to fix a dysfunctional pregnancy, that's not a form of birth control. That is restoring the body to its normal function, which is to have babies normally. So let's get into your next question here. What is your take on the death penalty? Is it justified to have the state kill someone for their crimes, or is there better forms of punishment? I ask this because currently there are 2 Australians on death row in Indonesia who attempted to smuggle drugs out of Indonesia back to Australia in 2004, and there is a huge debate in the media whether the execution should happen or not. Just curious on what your take is. If you had to make me choose one way or the other, yeah, I would be pro-life. And I used to think that it was inconsistent to be against abortion and for the death penalty, but going back to the previous point, everyone should have a chance at life. But again, what you do with it renders judgment one way or another. And if you do something like take somebody else's life or blow up a few buildings for no good reason, then yeah, I mean, I have a hard time sympathizing with that, or any other heinous crime that you can think of. But when it comes down to it, I am opposed to the death penalty because, I mean, just for utilitarian reasons, it's very expensive and more expensive than what keeping them in prison for the rest of their life would cost. Because you have a lot of appeals that go into a death penalty ruling. And I think that a life in prison is a fate worse than death, so... And some people certainly deserve that. And the last question of yours, if there was one word you could ban from the English language and no one was allowed to speak it ever again, what would it be and why? I'd ban cisgender. Because we already have a word for the default state of being. And you know what that word is? Normal. Alright, let's get into Stacy's question. Is there any hope for a clean secession? Is the only option violent balkanization? We had our chance at a clean secession when the Confederate States said, no, we don't want to be a part of the Union anymore, and Abraham Lincoln, for some dumb reason, wanted to preserve the Union even though the Union was incredibly young at the time. Now everybody's going to be like, oh, why do you hate black people? But we know better than to take those accusations seriously. I think that if there were clearer lines between the dominant ethnicities in a given region, that the secession would be more peaceful. But a lot of the trouble areas where the diversity, such as strength, leads to a lot of conflict and crime, that's where you're going to see the balkanization, because there are a lot of competing groups in close proximity with one. Just look at Europe. Look at the relative lack of land that they have compared to other continents. Look at the borders between countries in Europe. Look at how they're all jagged and imperfect. Whereas if you look at the border between the US and Canada, it's pretty flat. The flatter the border, the more peaceful the separation. And Europe has a ton of cultural differences despite the fact that they have, more genetic similarity with one another relative to, Africans and Asians or whites and Africans or etc. Those jagged borders represent a lot of conflict and a lot of hashing it out, shall we say, and I think that borders that will be fought over because of the diversity contained in that relative area will be far more jagged, let's just say that. I used to think that a breakup of America was inevitable, but I just realized that that would be ideal, and ideal things rarely ever happen. I mean, it wouldn't be ideal that people would fight and, spill blood over boundaries, but the culture is just too divided in every way that you can imagine, and it's pretty alienating. And I'll hesitate to say anything extra right now because I don't want to inadvertently answer somebody else's question that I got in the Ask FM inbox that sort of ties into what is being said here. With that being said, I'm going to click through to the next question. We have 2 more email questions. This one's from Han. Did you hear about Jerusalem having its first drag race? And by that I don't mean with cars, but on to the real question. Oh, sorry, there are trains outside. I was talking to... God damn, that's loud. I'm just gonna let it go. Alright, on to the real question. I was talking to one of my male friends a while back and asked him if 2 people could ever completely understand each other, and he said yes. Personally, I think no matter how close people think they are, they will never completely understand one another. He is a bit of an anti-SJW, so he kind of has a deluded way of thinking, but his heart is in the right place. So what is your opinion on the matter? I think it's a bit naive to say that you can completely understand one another, but I think that you can achieve a very thorough understanding of a person. If you love somebody enough, you do want to understand them as much as possible, because understanding leads to cooperation, which leads to happier times. So I don't think that it's possible to achieve a complete understanding, but You should achieve a functional understanding, and that should just come naturally if you spend enough time with somebody. And I don't think that a complete understanding is really necessary in order to have a happy relationship. The human mind is a complex thing, human emotions are a complex thing, and, we're not entirely predictable, so this seems like a question Stefan Molyneux would answer on his show. It seems up his alley. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to achieve a 99% understanding with your loved ones, but it's on a practical level you don't need to. So that's all I really have to say about it. And I'm gonna have to look into this Jerusalem drag show. I'm gonna have to ask our Jewish friends how they feel about that. This question is from John, and this will close out the email questions for this week. Why do you like The Believer featuring Ryan Gosling? I watched it a few weeks ago and I didn't really like it. It seemed to me like it was trying to capitalize on American History X's audience but failed. I wasn't able to follow the narrative very well and I wasn't sure what the filmmakers were trying to say or show me. Maybe I wasn't thinking hard enough about it. What about the film did you think was good? I liked American History X because it was so blue-pilled that it accidentally rolled over to being red-pilled. But The Believer just seemed like a weird movie about a self-hating Jew who runs up a staircase and blows himself up. Hopefully your commentary on it will help me see what's good about it. I liked it because it was written and directed, I believe, by a Jewish person, and it shows a lot about Judaism in both race and religion that just couldn't be exposed by a regular Goyim filmmaker. And in a more general sense, it shows that, despite your resistances to what you are, you can't really escape it. For example, the scenes where he's fighting with his skinhead buddies or whatever, and how he's involved with this right-wing organization, and, they're saying, you're a really good speaker, and he's like, no, I like to do the rough and tumble stuff, or whatever he's saying. He's denying aspects of himself that make him Jewish, which, as you see in the end, he doesn't really do a good job at repressing too much. And I should slow down because this movie, not everybody has seen, very few people have seen relatively. Basically, this movie is about it's actually based on a true story. Ryan Gosling plays a guy who's involved with various right-wing causes, including the neo-Nazis, despite the fact that he is Jewish. And the director uses this to explore different aspects of Judaism, including the existence of self-hating Jews and just why that's the case, why those people exist. But I like the movie because I could tell that it was a highly personal film, and it's channeling a lot of the director/writer's frustrations and doubts about being Jewish and the conflicts that he has with, certain aspects of it that he doesn't like, but he can't escape it because he is Jewish by blood. I'm fascinated by portrayals of race as told by members of that race who aren't all sentimental about it, because there's no way that I can know what it's like to be Jewish because I'm not Jewish. And with how philo-Semitic most of the film industry is, it's rare to see a movie that deals with the subject with some degree of honesty. But I've never seen American History X, but even if I did, I don't think that I would like this movie any less or see it as like a cheap way to capitalize on its success, because while this movie, it did win I think it won Sundance one year, it didn't make it into the theaters, at least it didn't get any significant distribution. With films like this, I think that it's beneficial to look at the context in which it was made. In other words, who made it. So those are a few reasons I liked it, and I think this is worth mentioning. Abraham Cooper of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and he's a rabbi, he said, the movie is a primer for anti-Semitism. But I think that even if somebody isn't interested in Judaism or anti-Semitism, I think the movie is worth watching for Ryan Gosling's performance alone. I think he was only 20 or 21 when that movie was filmed. Highly impressive that somebody that young could play a character like that. And before I watched this movie, I read a review on Soiled Cinema of it, as I often do with these movies like this that not a lot of people talk about. I quote, "Jews thrive on hatred, as Henry Bean's film mentions. There would be no Israel without Auschwitz, for Hebrews would cease to exist without such hatred, just thus making the Jewish neo-Nazi in a bizarre way the ultimate and most deeply devout Jew. Indeed, while being one of the most unwaveringly Jewish movies ever made, The Believer is also one of the most cleverly and eclectically anti-Semitic, as a work that puts Uncle Adolf's bestseller Mein Kampf to shame. So that's not me saying that, but I do agree with it. But it's cool because it's a movie by a Jew about Jews, and it's not a movie like a Hollywood movie that's just sneering at the stupid goyim and laughing at them in a mean-spirited kind of way. The focus is turned inward rather than outward, and I think that film is a medium that lends itself well to personal narratives and expression. So thanks for the question, and we will move on to our Ask FM questions here, which we will read from the top or bottom? Top, bottom. Let's read it from the top. You said in a previous episode that the media focuses on exceptions. Surely that is what you're doing with these bestiality stories you've been sharing lately. I agree with you and I disagree with you. And here's where I agree with you. I agree with you that the majority of people aren't going around and fucking animals. I was dealing with those stories to expose the fact that people like to bring up that, well, toxic masculinity leads to men behaving badly and them engaging in extreme behaviors. I'm using these stories to say, no, that's bullshit. Look at all these women engaging in the extreme behaviors. Humans are an extreme species, at least they are very prone to it. So we agree that I am focusing on exceptions. But how the media does it, like in Vice and Gawker, two very mainstream media outlets, and they have dealt with this story before. Not dog fucking specifically, but human-animal relations. They deal with these stories like, oh, look at this human and animal relationship. Isn't it beautiful? Wow, it really makes you think, doesn't it? And that is the exceptionalism that I am referring to that the media focuses on. They take these aberrant people and say, look at them. They're just like you and me. Isn't it great? When the behavior is generally horrible in and of itself. People who fuck animals are not these brilliant, sophisticated people that you wouldn't notice if you just walked by them on the street. No, they're horrible fucking people that live out in bumfuck Oklahoma that are on sites called beast dating. It's like, you think the people out in the Castro district who completely inundate themselves with that lifestyle, you think they're just holding their hands and being themselves? No, I know better. So that's where we disagree, how we're defining portrayals of exceptions. Hey CF, I was wondering what you thought of Nobody TM's videos. They're bizarre and artistic, and most neo-reactionaries think the sentiment behind them is subtly quite rightist / anti-modernity. If you haven't seen them, here's the link. Yeah, I saw, I became familiar with them a couple of years ago, when the videos were newer. I think Nobody TM is the greatest living video artist we have now, and it's really not a crowded field. Video art is not a terribly popular field, but he's the best that I've ever seen. Or she, don't want to misgender anybody here. But Nobody TM, yeah, I think is better than Bill Viola. The way that Nobody TM finds these pieces of footage and these strange lectures that sound really old about mind control, and the way that they're combined, they create all sorts of meaning that it really does blow my mind. I can't quite describe the feeling, but it's really alienating, but in a good way, strangely enough, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And if anybody else here is not familiar with Nobody TM, just look it up on YouTube. It should be easy to find. I guarantee that if you watch them, you will get something out of them, because even if you don't like them, you will have an experience that you can't deny that is an original one. Next up, you've said we're in the winter of Western society. My question is, what do we do now? 1488 will never happen and the mainstream won't wake up, so where do we go / what do we do? Is stockpiling weapons a viable idea? Thanks for the podcast in any case, found you through TRS. This question is the one that ties in a little bit with the possibility of balkanization, or whether that's preferable or not. I might not have conveyed this well enough back when I originally said this, but the fact that we're in the winter of Western civilization, in my opinion, does not mean that things are going to end up being violent and things are going to explode. I simply mean that the culture is to a point where it is slowing down. There is really nothing noble being done anymore. The spirit of the Western man, I think, is just almost completely dead. Just look at the literature that we're producing now. We're no longer producing masterful tomes of whatever language we are writing in. Look at the paintings that are being bought and sold for ridiculous sums of money. They're trash that somebody who's, taken 2 years of painting classes could do at 12 years old. I once thought that the happening would happen, but I realized that that would be highly interesting and almost ideal, and like I said before, ideal things rarely ever happen. So with respect to stockpiling guns, I don't think that it's a bad idea just as a contingency, but I don't think that it's just going to, shit's going to completely hit the fan. I think, I mentioned this to a friend recently that we are on the slow fade to Brazilistan. I think that the quality of life is slowly declining, and it's happening so slowly that we're just going to learn to accept it. But if we take a look back and look at time in chunks of 15 or 20 years, we're going to realize, holy shit, things are shitty now comparatively. So the winter of Western civilization is more of the spiritual decay and the gradual decay of basic daily life. Our fathers and grandfathers chose diversity over greatness, and there's nothing that we can really do about it other than focusing on our little thing and improving our lives and the people around us. Actually, a lot of our grandfathers and fathers deferred the decision making to ladies because they felt guilty for some reason. They think, oh, we've oppressed these women, let's make them make decisions. And they decided on the pool boy who doesn't speak any English because of reasons that have to do with tingling. But anyway, next question. If the internet hadn't been invented, what do you think the state of the world/society would be in today? I think there's a lot of great information that can be found that runs counter to the dominant narrative that is being pushed by various people, both in the media and in common mainstream society. But unfortunately, finding this information and being exposed to this information requires a little bit of doing. It requires a little bit of effort that most people cannot be bothered to make. So I'm grateful for the various alternative media outlets, and I'm grateful for the fact that you can get pretty much any piece of information that you could possibly want with a few keystrokes. But I'm going to tell you what I'm not grateful for. It's the fact that the internet promotes all of these deviant lifestyles. You think that furries would exist without the internet? You think that bronies would exist without the internet? Maybe they would, but not in any significant capacity. They would be relegated to the library basement, like anime was back in the 1980s and 90s. What this says is that if people are given the chance, many people, an alarming number of people, will choose deviance over the straight and narrow. The internet is the great enabler. It gives people this chance, a staggering number of people. But the internet is a neutral tool. It does what we tell it to do. And if people were not corrupt in and of themselves initially, there would not be these corrupt, horrible things on the internet that promote and spread certain lifestyles that decent people find absolutely disgusting. I'm of the opinion that the human condition is in a perpetual state of degradation. If we didn't have the internet, that wouldn't change. That would still be the case. But it's hard to argue that the internet hasn't sped things along. And I love the internet. What I do is on the internet. It's how I make my money. It's how I get my message out to people. It's how I entertain people. But I'd be lying to myself if I said that it hasn't led to some negative cultural effects. So once again, thank you everyone that submitted a question last week, this week, and for weeks to come. I always appreciate it because that's the bulk of what I do here. I think I'm going to have enough time to do 2 readings of the tags. Yeah, I did the poll this week. Not a lot of people voted on it because I didn't do a lot of promotion of the poll. But again, I will have a poll in the description below, a URL to that, where you can vote on what tag you'd like me to read on Tumblr and do a hot take of it. So by the time this goes up, I will have another poll and you will vote on which tag you'd like me to read through on episode 29. But this week's winner was fuck society, so I'm going to type that in right now. .com, not fuck the patriarchy, fuck society. All right, here we go. The second post in, that moment when you feel like a loser because you're the only one in the room not snorting lines, it's a horrible feeling. I feel like a loser because I'm not doing cocaine. Let that sink in a little bit here. Oh, the fairer sex. What has happened to you? Okay, somebody bitching about their family. That's boring. That moment when your friend says she's never kissed a girl and you're just over there like, hey, if you want me, I'm here because your friend is hot. You're preying on your so-called friends like they are sexual objects. 10 steps to positive body image. Appreciate all that your body can do, like do cocaine. Keep a top 10 list of things you like about yourself, things that aren't related to how much you weigh or what you look like. Remind yourself that true beauty is not simply skin deep. Beauty is a state of mind, not a state of your body. Why not both? Look at yourself as a whole person. Choose not to focus on specific body parts. Surround yourself with positive people. Shut down those voices in your head that tell you your body is not right or that you are a bad person. You know, most people are polite, and they aren't going to tell you that you're a bad person if you are also being polite. And most people, if you know them casually, aren't going to talk about how fat you are. You know, it's rude. One of the reasons, or that's what it says? Oh, steps. One of the steps says, become a critical viewer of social and media messages. How about you not consume pop culture bullshit? That might be a good thing. Alright, next up. Why does society consider itself a man's world? I mean, shit, every one of you bastard popped out of a vagina. Have some respect. Well, women, when, prior to women's liberation, were seen as, valuable creatures because they created life. Without women, you couldn't have life. Does anybody else see the irony in that? The dominant attitude is now, you're more than what your body, women are more than what their bodies offer, and they're less cherished than they've ever been. People generally tend to value those that enable their genetics to carry on to the next generation. But what do I know? No means no. When will guys ever get that? I'm a feminist because we shouldn't have to pretend to have a boyfriend or to be a lesbian to get guys who we are clearly not interested in to leave us alone. Why do I have to fear for my safety every time I'm out? Where are you going out to? I've been out, I've been to like bars before, when I was single, not to cruise or anything because who the fuck wants a bar slut? Have some self-respect. But even when I was in those environments, observing people, the whole, I'm no means no thing, it never happened. It never happened. The rape is coming from inside your brain. The harassment is coming from inside your brain. I'm sure if guys were coming up to you and being insistent and aggressive that you were attracted to, you wouldn't be bitching about this. There's a fine line between creepy and cute. And that line is determined entirely by what the girl's vagina says. Okay, here's this one. Society wants you to think that in order to make it in life, you have to be a size 0. But baby, that's not even the case. You don't have to be the prettiest or the skinniest to make it in life. All you have to do is be successful in any and everything you do. Well, fucking hell. And make sure whatever it is you love it and put your all into it. Love yourself first before you do anything, and everything else will fall into place. Well, I don't see what that whole prettiest and size 0 thing has to do with anything. I thought that was a given, but it's not as stupid as some of the other stuff I've read on here. Okay. His name was Xander. His name was Damien. No, these are clearly girls that are, that cut their hair short and think that they look like boys now because of that. Oh, God. Nobody can tell me I'm not gorgeous because I feel too damn cute to care. So I saw this in Walmart, and it's of a woman. It's and the tagline is "skinny every day," and it's in the intimate section. And well, what's wrong with being skinny? What's wrong with looking good? And the hashtags are beauty standards and body standards and love yourself. Oh man. Fuck society's definition of beautiful. Thin is beautiful. That's what most people know in our generation. Girls, you really don't have to be skinny to be called beautiful. You can be beautiful in whatever size you're in. You just have to believe in yourself that you are beautiful no matter what people think of you. You don't have to starve yourself or force yourself to vomit. Fuck what people say, you're beautiful. Nobody is saying that you have to starve yourself or that you have to vomit. In fact, those are incredibly negative things. We want girls to eat. We want girls to keep the contents of their stomach in their stomach. This is what egalitarianism does to women. Because, this is like some 16-year-old girl, and from what I could tell, she's not entirely ugly. I mean, she has her profile picture up, and, she's not hideous. She's thin, and yet she's thinking to herself, me being thin is bad because I'm superior. I am inherently superior because I am nicer to look at than some other girls I know. And she feels guilt. Stupid, stupid guilt because of this. Once you understand that egalitarianism is what is conveyed to people as the highest moral good, you realize why these women are lobotomizing their looks, why they are handicapping themselves, why they are cutting their hair in every weird sort of way and dyeing their hair all of these colors that don't really exist in nature. At least the parts of nature that you'd want to have something to do with. The parts of nature that indicate, no, I am not poisonous, you can approach me. But here's the next one. Why should gender matter? Nobody knows my cat's gender, but it doesn't stop us from loving the little shit any less. Why should it be any different with people? Because we're not looking to procreate with a cat. We love the cat platonically. Or if you're not a cat person, you don't love the cat at all. But that doesn't have anything to do with anything. Liberalism really is just the most baseline bullshit belief system. Something exists, therefore it's good, and you should celebrate it, and you shouldn't question it, or prod at it, or explore the idea, or be critical of it in any way. That's it. That's all it requires. And the only thing that isn't good are evil conservatives who want to have healthy families and etc. Here's a funny one. I refuse to look at my bank account, therefore there's no problem with it. I need to find a job, but no thanks, I'm fine, I hate you. And of course there's the fuck society tag in there. What, society is the reason that you're broke? It's for fuck's sake. So I was at school waiting to be picked up, and me and my friends were talking, and I said, fuck. A yard duty came over proceeding to yell at me, which I made some very good comebacks to until she said, it's not ladylike to talk like that. True. I think that is the most awful definition, because why should women be objectified as dainty and kind when some of us aren't? Who the fuck is objectifying you? We like dainty and kind things as men because we ourselves are not dainty and kind. The feminine approach provides a balance. But anyway, these definitions are a horrible thing in society, and I will proudly say as a girl, fuck you, yard duty. Fuck society because I can't say bad words. Even though you can, it's just somebody called you out on it. You really shouldn't be a potty mouth. It's an awful thing. I wish I wasn't a potty mouth. I wish I developed more verbal intelligence, but fuck it. Society is awful, or I've witnessed the most terrible sides of today's society in these few days. I've been procrastinating on the internet. It really makes me feel unworthy and want to kill myself. Knowing there are people who really do want to kill me, but they don't know me, is awful. Nobody gives a shit about you. But knowing there are people who love me unconditionally makes me cry so much, it feels unreal. Oh my god. These people are like one bad break away from completely snapping, from completely going off the cliff. Just let that sink in. Phil Robertson to get Freedom of Speech Award for his speeches against homosexuality. I can't. Okay. I'm trying to process that. You think that free speech shouldn't include criticisms of certain lifestyles? Because that's hate speech and that might hurt some people's feelings? Fuck you. When I say fuck the police, what I mean is fuck the occupation police officer, which is the fundamental purpose of instilling fear and blind obedience to the masses, without which laws would be useless and likely seen as legitimate. Oh my god. What we let me translate this for you. I got stopped because I was going 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Fuck the police. The fun with fuck society just never ends. It never ends. It's like these little fucking shits don't understand. After sexual assault, you are not the same. You don't live the same. Your behaviors change. You don't realize it when it's too late. Shit, you can't even masturbate sometimes because your body can go into shock any fucking time and shut down. Well, then don't masturbate. This is what living with fucking trauma is like. Now tell me that it's okay to submit to a person when they said no. Fuck you, society, and your 50 Shades of Grey piece of shit movie and book. Don't masturbate then. Are you stupid? If masturbation is such a traumatic thing for you, then don't fucking masturbate. If that's the biggest problem you have is that you feel trauma when you rub your pussy, then you know what? You fuck off. You're just stupid. People tell me that I need to get over my trauma with masturbating. No one's going to say that unless you discuss it with them. And if you do discuss it with them, they're perfectly justified in telling you that because, yeah, it is fucking stupid to feel traumatic experiences when you masturbate. Look, I get it. You were touched, you were diddled, whatever, you were without your consent. Okay, I get it. You're upset about it. But the biggest problem you have afterwards is the fact that you can't masturbate. Let that, just reflect on how absurd that is. This is the world's first digital insane asylum. And they all think that they're free. The day I saw a 10-year-old boy sitting on the train reading a girl power book on his way to school. Oh boy. You know, it's irritating that teenagers' opinions on the world aren't valid until they're legally considered an adult. It's because you don't know shit. You've only lived in artificial, protected environments your whole life. Society killed the teenager. This is kind of sad, but quite true. Teenagers are only fucked up because of the distortion of society, making them think that they are less than perfect, making a vast majority of them go mentally insane and causing a lot of them to quite sadly commit suicide. Well, let me tell you something, darling. All of you beautiful motherfuckers are perfect to someone, so 2 words for you. Fuck society. None of these people realize that they are why teenagers are not taken seriously. I don't think I remember a time when I was happy with the way I looked. Well, then learn to love yourself. Protect trans kids. Protect black people. Protect white people who disagree about what the police are doing to black people. But don't protect white people in general. Protect queer kids with homophobes for parents. Protect girls who wear a hijab. Protect guys who like things that society says is feminine. God fucking damn it, protect everyone. Please, life isn't predictable. You never know what moment could be your last. I'm begging you to be kind to everyone around you. Protect everyone except for white people. Protect only the good goyim. That's right. Protect only the good pale goyim. Something in German with a English hashtag. Makes a lot of sense. I really wish I was more comfortable to be who I want to be. Well, if who you want to be is a piece of shit, you shouldn't be comfortable with that. You really shouldn't. Why can't life be about being a good human being? Well, it depends on what you define as a good human being. Your soul worth is all about what you can contribute by being a worker, and that is complete bullshit. Society can fuck off. Translation: I am a worthless parasite who nobody wants. Nobody wants me to exist. So I'm going to get mad at them instead of improving myself by an objective measure. And of course she's a fake redhead with tattoos. And in her about, she says that she has personal mental health things. She posts about that. Great. Fuck systematic oppression, mental, physical, and hidden slavery, racism, and the people who try to justify any of the issues listed above. Hidden slavery, as opposed to not hidden slavery? I think slavery is not a black and white thing. I have to write about my generation's issues for sociology. Oh man, I could write for days. Just fill the page with all. You should just copy and paste every one of these posts and just reword them and make them grammatically correct, and you'll probably get an A on it. If you're fat, you're lazy and have no impulse control. If you're not fat, you're anorexic. It's a trap. No, you are not anorexic if you are not fat. You are anorexic if you are not anorexic. You know, if you eat a reasonable amount of food every day and you maintain a certain level of physical activity, you will not be fat and you will not be anorexic. You will be healthy, therefore desirable. That's all people want. You don't have to be super fit. You don't have to be a supermodel. You have to have some self-respect. That's all I am asking. All right, I've had enough of this. If you want to vote and have a say on which tag I will read next week, check the link below. I think it's a poll maker URL, but vote on that. You'll have 5 options to choose from, and whichever one wins, I will read on the next episode. But now I would like to read some kind words I got from the Bandcamp purchases left in the notes. This one says, "Heart you." This next one says, "Godspeed, you glorious bastard." Well, I love you too, and you too are a glorious bastard. Thank you for supporting what I do here. This one says, "I have watched the show every week since the start. Thank you for providing a break from the constant liberal bullshit I encounter every day on Facebook and YouTube. I have not submitted a question yet because I do not think I have anything worthwhile to submit, but I do thoroughly enjoy the show." Yeah, don't worry about it. If you do have some sort of question that occurs to you in your daily life, just write it down immediately, because I have things that I want to talk about like in the moment, but then I forget about it. I have absolutely no idea that I wanted to talk about it or what I wanted to talk about, and I've lost hours of content that way. So I do recommend that you carry around a notebook. It's something that I do. So if you ever want to submit a question, you can carry around a notebook and you will find that things will happen. But thanks a lot for your support. I really do appreciate it. This one says, "Keep going strong." So yes, some still hold themselves to respectable standards. You and me both, brother. At least we try to. "I love the program. Feels good to support someone who is speaking the truth." And then this one says, "Wanted to get this as soon as it was out, but have been so busy at work, completely forgot. Now I have some free time. So thanks heaps." Yeah, thank you everyone. It really means a lot to me. It's really more than I can put into words, the appreciation that I feel. So that just about does it for the nice messages that I got through Bandcamp. We'll see if we get some more next week. But until then, we're just about done here. Don't forget to go to therightstuff.biz, check out episode 21 of The Daily Shoah. I'm on it, and go check out the rest of their episodes too, because they do a really fucking good show over there. So take care of yourselves, be good to each other. I will be back with this show next weekend on Thursday, episode 8 of Tumbleristas. See you later.